Nick Abraham. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks for getting on the show. So before we go over your go over the questions, I'm gonna ask you a question. Why did you agree to come on the show in the first place?
Hey, you know what? I wanted to come on and speak the story, same as always. And it's always great to get on podcasts and just drop information. It's a great way to kind of spread this content around and really help just spread the brand. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of come on here and speak about cold emails, lead generation, and anything else that you want to talk about.
Awesome, awesome. So Nick Abraham is a innovator and a legend in the cold email lead generation space. For those who might not know who you are, can you tell me? Can you tell who you are, what you do, what companies you run?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Nick Abraham. I run leadburn.io. I am basically just sending cold emails on behalf of our clients to help them get leads on a performance basis. That's kind of what makes us stand out. And during the journey that we've had with Leadbird, we've also built three SaaS companies or four SaaS companies now in the cold outreach space that we actually use to help get our clients results. So, tools to personalize our cold emails at scale, tools to verify emails that most other vendors can't verify, and just other tools in the cold outreach space that really, expedite our client results.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about all these businesses and tools and SaaS businesses that you're running right now. But before we go into that, let's just go way back to your school days when you were, 15, 16, and when we were just getting started. So yeah, what was the first taste of entrepreneurship or business that you got? What was that like?
So my first taste of entrepreneurship. So I've always done like random side hustles from like when I was a super young kid. So like my first time was in like fifth grade. I used to sell customized socks to other people in school. And so that was like a little tiny little thing I did and did it with a couple of friends. And, it was my first taste of, actually making money. So that was pretty cool. Always did like random side hustles. So like in college, or I guess like towards the end of my high school, I used to throw like basketball tournaments and charge teams to come on board, and just a whole bunch of random things. Some took off, some didn't. But yeah, that was my first taste selling socks in middle school that were customized.
Hmm. And then when you're just trying to make some money here and there when you're starting out, and then you get a little bit serious when you get to learn some skills, and then reach out to people and sell your first gigs. And you were 18 when you got your first paid client, right? And I saw your
Mhm.
tweet yesterday. I was going through your Twitter feed, and I saw this tweet that you were 18 and your prospect asked to send the contract, and then you had no contract. You went to Rocket Lawyer, got a contract, and you got $750 paid for that, right? So that's a very special moment because I was 17, 18 as well when I got my first paid client using cold DMs and stuff like that for a website design. So what was that moment like? Because for me, it was a big aha moment, and it was the first time that someone paid me to do something, right? So, what was that moment like for you?
To me, it was everything. Like that moment it really kind of like let me realize that like I can do this outside of a 9 to 5 job. It was the first money I ever made outside of like working a regular job. And so it really just kind of opened my eyes. At that point I was working like part-time at like a gas station nearby my house, and was getting paid like 750 every maybe week or 2 weeks. And to just see it happen in a second, I think that was just phenomenal. And so from there, it just led to kind of where we're at now. So, huge point in my career.
Awesome, awesome. And then how did the things go after this? So you're doing a business right now, so you got into entrepreneurship, right? But that's not what everybody does, right? They, the traditional part is you study and then you get a job. So how did you make a choice over there? And like, what kind of person were you while you were just studying? Were you good at academics? And how did that go? How did you get into entrepreneurship?
Yes, I've always been like I've always been smart when I wanted to be smart, but like school never interested me. I never wanted to sit there and learn about, science or like medical terminology and none of those things, just because they just didn't interest me. Like physics, for example, like I hated it. And so like I just never put time or effort into it. And I would always coast when it came to like grades, always like a B to A student, nothing too crazy, putting very little work and time and effort into it. Um, and so yeah, that's the kind of student I was. And then when it came to like running the business, and obviously he was very interested in it, put a lot of effort and energy into it, and being able to sign my first client was huge. And then from there, just kind of learned what works, what doesn't, learned a lot of things along the way, and just kind of went from there. But yeah, that's kind of like how all that process went.
All right. So you're 18 now. You got your first paid client, and then how did you get into cold emails? Why cold
Yeah.
emails? Because there are a ton of options out there. Why did you choose to get into cold emails?
So I was just kind of looking online, like how to get clients. Because when I first started the agency, I had no idea how to start get clients. Right, kind of did all the other stuff, which is build a website, follow my papers, create an actual legitimate business. But at that point, just kind of sat there and was thinking, like, how do I get clients? Literally had no idea on how to do it. Found a lot of YouTube videos, found a lot of books to read about just sales in general, and just started doing cold outreach. Everything from cold calling, cold emailing, Facebook outreach, Instagram outreach, everything I could possibly do. And, you know, the cold email just happened to land more successfully and took less effort. And so, the way we were doing cold emails back then is way different than what we do now. But yeah, like I was just seeing us get appointments booked over like every day for just doing cold emails. And so I was just kind of thinking, hey, maybe I could do this as an actual service and help other businesses that kind of struggle to generate leads like I did before.
Got it. Got it. And then I also, as you just said, that you got started with how to you just wanted to figure out how to get clients, and then you jumped upon cold emails, right? And that's what, like, I've been doing for this podcast. I've been reaching out to people by cold emails. So I'm just starting out with that. What would be a good advice to someone who's just starting out for with cold emails, maybe for their agency, for their business, or maybe for a podcast like me?
Yeah. So even past cold emails, just in cold outreach in general, right? Like if you could follow this framework when it comes to writing your messages, like it doesn't matter what channel you use, you'll see success. And it just comes down to doing uh, three things, right? It's called the three C's: compliment, case study, call to action, right? And you want to make those messages short, concise, and direct. And if you can do that and you just do enough reps of that, you'll get responses that, of people that are interested and are wanting to take it to the step further. And so that's kind of like what I teach our team when it comes to actually writing cold emails. It's like we just want to be short, we want to be direct, and we want to follow the three C's or the two C's, which is compliment, case study, call to action, or just compliment and then curious questions. So that's kind of like the frameworks that we use when it comes to like getting responses and kind of making our outreach successful.
Awesome, awesome. So now you have started with cold emails while you're building your businesses, and it's successful for you. You're getting clients, and you're able to see the progress that you wanted to see. How did it click it for you, and how did you actually got confident about it? Okay, this thing is working for me. I'm gonna scale this. So how did it work for you? Because, for example, I had a few successes, right, wherein some things worked for me, but eventually down the line, I got to know that, okay, I had to pivot, right? So did you have to pivot, or like how did it go for you? How were you able to scale?
Yeah. So what kind of like switched everything for me? So like when you first start like doing any kind of business online, in store, whatever, right? Like in B2B, it's very hard to convince a buyer that you're legitimate, right? And in that comes because you don't have a brand, you don't have case studies, you don't have social proof, you don't have credibility. Like you are just a random person pitching them on a service. And that's what it was for me for a lot of my journey, right? Especially starting out, just sending cold emails, getting on calls with people and really trying to force them to close. but I didn't really think and step back to think like, wow, I don't have social proof, I don't have credibility, I don't have case studies, like I don't have any of these things, right? And it made my life a living hell for the first, half of it, because who's going to buy from a stranger? Who's going to pay, $2,500 to $3,500 up front for, something that they just don't have any guarantees on, right? So like, case in point, it just made life difficult. And then the moment we had all of that, we had the brand, we had the case studies, we have the social proof, we have the credibility. All I knew was that I need to do more of that and gather more social proof, more credibility, and just build more of a brand. And it makes all my marketing, my outreach, and everything else so much easier, and so much easier for people, like for our sales team, to convince buyers that, hey, these guys are legitimate and they can actually help my business grow. And so once we got to that point, it was much easier to take everything forward. So to kind of give you numbers, I think in January, so like that's what, 6 months ago, is when we first kind of wrote and started really getting into like doing a lot of social proof, so like case studies and everything of that sort. And so I think we were at like probably like around 30-ish clients in January. And after taking like the last 6 months to just like get case studies, keep getting more social proof, more credibility, and just like really owning the space, we're right now at 86 clients. And so we almost tripled our business in 6 months in terms of client size, by simply just doing more of what we know worked, which is gathering and building up social proof, that brand and everything of that sort, and then just doing more sales outreach to get more appointments and close more people through the door. So yeah, that's kind of what I learned. And yeah.
So you have scaled so hard in the past 6 months. Uh, what challenges did you face while scaling up? Related to the operations and
Mhm.
hiring and setting up the processes and SOPs. What was the hardest challenges that you faced?
Yeah, so I've always been a really good product guy and a very good operations and automation guy, but a lot of that stuff doesn't correlate when it comes to building a team. And like I think there's two types of operations, right? Like there's people operations, and then there's like automation operations, right? Like things that you build on your product to kind of make your team's life easier, and that's where I'm phenomenal at. But I really lacked when it came to people operations, right? Learning how to run a team meeting, making the most use out of my team's time, how to like be a good leader, things of that sort, how to onboard employees, how to make sure that they're hitting their KPIs and that they have a good schedule and everything of that sort. Like that's the stuff that I'm learning over time, and where I'm constantly iterating on, because that's where I struggled, and I'm learning as I go. And so that was the biggest hurdle in the last 6 months. Like we've always been good at sales. We've obviously been always good at lead generation, being a lead generation company, and we've always been pretty good when it came to delivering consistent results, and just like building a phenomenal product overall. But like building the team, like that's always been a struggle, and something like I'm excited to just kind of get better at, as I gain this experience.
All right. So, what's the one thing that you work upon to make sure that the niche or the industry that you work in is doesn't get saturated, or maybe you're able to pivot and find new industries or niches where you can leverage the non-saturation and you can make the most money out of it because having the early mover advantage. I'm not sure how this works in the cold email space, but for example, the e-commerce, right? You have to tap into products early and find the trend and then make the most money out of it, because and by taking the early mover advantage, and it goes same for media buying. You have to tap into traffic sources early, and you make the most ROI that way. So how does it go with the cold email stuff?
Yeah, so cold emails, it's a lot harder in some senses to get saturated, because like you think about like an ad network, right? It's much easier to launch an ad than it is to launch a cold email campaign successfully, right? And the reason why I say that is because with cold email, there's a lot of manual effort when it comes to building a lead list, making sure it's on target, setting up inboxes. Like it's a 2 week process minimum, right? And so in terms of saturation, I'm not really worried, because like not many people will take that like not enough people will put in that legwork of getting the perfect lead list, getting the deliverability right and everything of that sort, and then getting to the cold email copy with the the creative angles and everything of that sort. Like there's not enough like what's the word, like volume that goes out and to kind of saturate it in that sense. Like we are the volume, right? So like we will saturate our own offer, and then from there we're iterating on it. But like in the cold email space, like as long as you're not sharing your cold email copy and sharing like your campaign angles in a lot of cases, like you're typically going to be fine. Like we've had clients where we've literally ran the exact same cold email copy outside of, or like the exact same cold email like angles and like pretty much the same lead list for like 6+ months, and we've been easily delivering like 15 to 25 leads consistently, with like no adjustments on anything. And so yeah, like I'm not really worried about saturation, in a lot of sense. And like the other thing too is like 90% of people that run cold emails, like they don't even get the fundamentals right, because there's a lot of legwork when it comes to getting the fundamentals right, and they just don't get that right. And if you can make sure you get those fundamentals down, it's very easy to make cold emails work, as long as you have kind of like those things that I mentioned, like the social proof, the credibility, and everything of that sort. So yeah.
What would be that? What would be those fundamentals?
Yeah, fundamentals. So like there's like a ton of tiny things. So like for example, like cleaning a lead list, when you clean it, like formatting the company names and the titles properly so that it's not saying Lead Bird LLC, it's saying Lead Bird, right? It's not saying Chief Executive Officer, it's saying CEO, right? So like a lot of people miss out on simple things like that. And then there's like things like, okay, let's set up a secondary domain and set up all the DNS records properly so that, our deliverability, and then like take the 2 weeks to warm it up so that our deliverability, is going to be a little bit more optimal. And then like making sure that the secondary domain and the secondary inbox that you set up forwards to your primary domain, so that it's not just showing like a blank 404 page error, right? And so like there's just like a lot of tiny things like that when it comes to the fundamentals of cold emails that people miss out on. I can go into other things as well, as like verifying your lead list before you launch your cold email, and then just like writing good, concise cold emails copy. Like a lot of people struggle when it comes to writing just like good copy, and it kind of comes to that framework I said earlier, like either using the 3 C's or the 2 C's. And so like it's easy for someone like me to kind of do all of that stuff because we've been doing it for so long and we have the systems to kind of make sure we get all those fundamental things down automatically. But for like the complete new person to cold emails, like they won't even know where to get the leads from, right? And if they did, they won't know how to clean it, and if they did, they won't know how to verify. So they just don't. They miss out on a lot of these processes that they might do manually, and so that's where a lot of people struggle when it comes to the fundamentals of cold email.
Got it. The reason I asked this question was because I see all these people on Twitter, and it seems like the barrier of entry is very low, and everyone is like crushing it in this space. So it seemed to me like that. It's very easy to get into it and make the most money out of it. But from your answer, it seems like it's not true. You have to be good at your craft to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Twitter's definitely in the top like 10% of the crowd when it comes to cold email. Like it's a very hyperactive, good community that's constantly learning. But like you go ask like the average BD or SDR that works at, a regular enterprise type company, like they don't know half of these things, and half of them don't have these practices in place to kind of get right. And that's why cold emails will typically be like their least performing channel, and it's mostly they get most of their appointments set from like doing cold calls and like social selling via LinkedIn. And it's because they don't have these practices in place. But even then, with like a lot of people on Twitter, like I get on calls all the time with people on Twitter, and they also don't have a lot of these practices in place. Like you can get some success from just like raw dogging a random lead list that you got from some random spot with your email account that you've had for 10 years, but like it's not going to be a sustainable system that delivers leads month over month, because there's going to be so many things in between that break. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up when it comes to Twitter. And this is the other thing too. Like I think out of everyone that follows me on Twitter and everyone that's on that in that Twitter space, there's probably less than 3 people that I know that are sending over 500,000 cold emails a month, right? The rest of the people are sending in such small batches and quantity where like a lot of the advice that they give is just not accurate, and it's not going to work for a lot of other people's use cases. It's going to work for theirs, and it might work just because of kind of luck, but like overall it's like a lot of bad advice on Twitter as well, and a lot of
Right.
oversimplification.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So while you were just saying this, I realized, I have to unfollow a lot of people on Twitter. I see a lot of fluff information out there. Anyways, it's kind of surprising to me. All these big companies are not actually good at performance, right? Whether it's cold email or it's even advertising. They are good at branding and stuff, but when it comes to performance, generally they suck, right? Which is kind of surprising to me because they have a lot of money to invest, but I'm not sure why they're not able to, see the performance side of the thing. They're just good at brand and stuff, but I'm not sure why they are not able to crack the performance thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Got it. So let's just talk about mentorship. I know that you got a mentor really early in your career. So, but I don't know how it happened and the details. So, would you tell something about that?
Yeah, yeah. So mentor very early on was Eric Paulson. He runs a B2B lead gen agency and he's ran it for 25 plus years. And so, a lot of the stuff that he taught me very early on was very crucial in how we built our business Leapbird. And it was funny enough, the way I met him was he actually sent me a he actually got, so he could send a cold email to a friend of mine that I met from doing a cold outreach to. And then that friend thought it made sense to introduce us because we might be able to help each other. And I think he was initially trying to pitch me on a software that he built, and I was kind of helping him understand like, hey, there's a lot of like issues here, and like this is how I would position it. And then we just became really good friends along the way, and he kind of became a mentor for me when it came to just like doing everything that we do now.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So, uh, what advice would you give to someone who is starting out, but you know maybe he needs someone to help or someone to partner or a mentor because I think that's really important too. Not It's not necessary to have a mentor, but at least a group of like-minded people around you, which helps you grow. So if for someone who is starting out and he or she might not have the group of the like-minded people or not have a mentor, what advice would you give?
Yeah, so it's hard to find a mentor because like I get tons of cold DMs from people that are like, oh, like I would love to be an apprentice at your company and like I'd love to like work for free and all these things, but it's like it's a lot of time and effort to work with someone that is pretty much starting from zero or one when it comes to skill sets, and take them into your company and spend time and nurture them for them to leave, right? Like that's how
Right.
I view a lot of the DMs I get. And like I think for a lot of people that are actively looking for a mentor, like they're doing it the wrong way. Like a mentor isn't just going to like want to work with you because you're offering your time for free, right? Because they're gonna have to offer their time for free back and really invest into you. So I don't know, like I think it's kind of backwards there. So I wouldn't really advise people to go out and look for like a solo mentor. Like it's just gonna happen when it happens. Um, but like I think what you should do is surround yourself with like people that are in your space. So like find a coaching or course of some sort where they have a community, and just be super active in the community and just make sure that it's the right community for you. So like a great example is like I work with Daniel Fazio and Andre and all of them inside of Client Ascension, which is a phenomenal community.
Right.
And like it's great for agency owners to join. And like the one thing I've learned from being in that community is that the people that get the most success are simply the people that do the most action and do the most when it comes to their inputs. And the ones that don't are the ones that kind of join and expect things to just kind of fall in their lap without actually having to put the work in. And so like I would recommend, and there's been some kids in there that, and not even kids, like there's been colleagues in there that have done phenomenal when it comes to results. And so like if I was to do this all over again, like I would go find a program or community or coaching kind of style, like business where they're really hands on, just like Client Ascension is, has a phenomenal community, and like the people that run that are actively doing what you want to do. I would join that and I would soak in all the knowledge, network as much as I can, and take it from there because I think that's the easiest way to go from like that 0 to 1 uh, stage.
Right. Also, awesome advice. And you just mentioned Andre. He's the man. Like, I would tell you that. I was 17 when I got my first client, and Andre helped me. But he did not even start Knowledge X at that time. He was just running his old podcast with Christian, and yeah, he's the man. Just a quick shout out to him.
Mhm.
Awesome. So let's just talk about your SaaS businesses. So you built a few SaaS companies. I believe it's three, right? You have three SaaS businesses,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
The main
And
ones. Mhm.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna say like the main ones are Quick Lines, Scrubby, Golden Leads. Those are like the priority ones.
All right, got it. How did it come to how did you even get an idea to build a SaaS business around it? First question. Second question is how did you build it? Because for someone who is a non-techie person who's non-tech savvy, how would someone build a SaaS business? Because I'm sure a ton of people have a lot of ideas about building SaaS businesses, but they're just not tech savvy. So how to do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was also in that same boat, and it's one of those things like getting to SaaS. It's like you build your first SaaS, you run into all the mistakes and errors, but you learn so much along the way. So when you build your next SaaS, it's so much easier. And so I was able to get into SaaS because of my mentor Eric. So he allowed me to partner with him on Inboxy, which is an email deliverability SaaS, and I got to kind of see it built from the ground up. And then we also partnered up on Quick Lines, and that was the one where I really got to see it from like literally from scratch to what it is now. And just kind of being involved with the process and seeing like a developer come on board, how he runs his daily huddles with the development team, understanding like what is front end, what is back end, and how they kind of piece that together to build the full product and like the tiny things that they look for. You just got to be involved in the process, and that's kind of how you learn how to go about SaaS. And every time we built a new SaaS, um, you just kind of learn like what you should do, what you wouldn't do. And so like, the first couple of SaaSes we've built, they had some success, but like long-term success wise, they're not really there. But like the newer ones that we built have already beat them in terms of new users, total revenue, and just like kind of fit that product market fit or have achieved product market fit, I would say, compared to some of the other stuff that we built. And so, yeah, just kind of being involved in the process is what allows you to kind of understand how to build it. And like just having a very good developer that can kind of simplify things for you as needed. So like our CTO that helped us build Scrubby, you know, he likes to build things in a very simple manner, and that plays like very well in the long term, because you can make a lot of iterations, and that's what I recommend for anyone that's building a SaaS. It's like for your MVP, you really do just want a minimal viable product. You want something that is very easy and fast to iterate on, because that's what we messed up on like our first couple of SaaS companies with like quick lines and stuff. It's like we built a very like tech in well, I think it's called like tech indensed product or tech debt or whatever it's called. And so it's very hard for us to make adjustments quickly. And we had to move at a much slower pace, which kind of hurt us when it came to just anything, user retention, just like marketing and new features, anything of that sort. So, yeah.
Got it. And with all these AI revolution going on, the rise of Chat GPT and all the new AI tools and softwares that are coming on, how do you see those impacting the cold email space? Because there are a ton of AI tools that are coming, and then I see news about Google cracking down on these, uh, how do you say that, bulk emails thing. So how do you think that that's going to impact the cold email space?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for the most part, like I was kind of explaining this to a friend last week, but like AI is only as good as the data that you train on it, right? And there's not enough people in the world right now that are doing enough cold outreach and collecting enough data on cold outreach to supply any kind of model with anything past surface knowledge, right? And so that's kind of what I think is the case with most AI and how it's going to impact cold emails. Like I think it could do some like very minimalistic things, but like I don't see it in the near future really making a huge impact when it comes to cold emails outside of doing simple things like personalization or like cleaning up company names. Outside of that, like I really don't see too much of an impact as of now. I'm sure we'll see more of an impact as time goes on.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Got it. All right. So, cold emails has been big for you, but what would be the biggest things, or what were the biggest factors that helped you a lot in your success besides cold email? What things did you do
Yeah, I
with
think
had the highest ROI besides cold email? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think like the biggest thing would just kind of being like very product driven and like just Zapier, I guess I would really credit a lot of it. Like you don't find many agencies that have 86 clients and can be managed entirely by like a team of like 7 to 8, you know. And most of it is because like our entire back end is run on a whole bunch of automations from Zapier to Integromat to Hardcode, and by doing so, we're really kind of breaking the limits on how most lead gen agencies operate. And so yeah, that's what I think is leading to a lot of our success, and I'm excited to see in the next like 3 to 6 months because we built like I think a lot of the stuff that are really going to impact us in the last like month or so, and I'm excited to see how that further impacts us in the next 6 months and so.
Got it. Awesome. Awesome. Let's talk about a little about philanthropy as well. You were in India last year, right? In June, around this time only.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
was in India.
yeah, I saw your tweet that uh, you were going to donate around 10K dollars to build some homes for the homeless.
Hmm.
I think it was Kerala, right? Your
Yeah,
tweet.
yeah. So, mhm.
So let's just talk about that because that's something that shows how you care about things around you, right? So which is really great, and it's really inspiring and motivating, right? Let, tell me a little about that. How did it go? How was the experience? Are you continuing doing that? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's always been a goal to kind of give back. And I kind of learned from my dad. So my dad, born and raised in Kerala, came up from really nothing. Didn't even have his first pair of shoes until he was in college. Came to America, gave me pretty much everything that I have now, and uh, I did not come from the mud by any means, right? Like I had a pretty good upbringing in it, and it's all due to the sacrifices that he had. And one thing that he's been doing for the last couple of years is just kind of giving back to the community he was raised in and helping the less fortunate in Kerala that just didn't have the opportunities just like him. And that comes back to just and just building like simple properties, simple houses in India. It's honestly pretty affordable and pretty cheap. It takes a long time to kind of do. And so like a goal of mine has been always to try to see if we can build like one property a year, and just kind of give back to like our regions, I guess.
Awesome. Which is so good. I feel so inspired from that. Uh, what would be one golden rule of success that you want to share with people who are listening to this podcast?
Yeah, just consistently keep at it. Like as corny as it is to say, but just like literally never give up. Like I've gone through like 8 different revisions of like my Leaper. Like we've done like tons of changes on the offers, and at a point I could have just thrown in the towel and kind of gave up on it, but like I wanted to see it all the way through, and it is what it is now, and it's doing really well, and it's going to continue to do really well. But like I see a lot of people that just keep pivoting, or like they'll just keep like they'll start something, they'll give up the next day, or they just never see things through all the way, and I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs mess up, where they just don't even start to begin with. So like if I was to kind of give advice to anybody, it would just be like, just don't give up on the things that are seeing some levels of success just because you're running into a wall.
Awesome, awesome advice. So I like to gamify things a little bit. So we're gonna end this podcast with a challenge. I've been watching a lot of Danny Miranda podcasts recently.
Hmm.
Do you know about Danny Miranda?
Yeah, I've seen him on Twitter. I haven't really
Yeah,
listened to any of his podcasts, but he seems like he's doing a great job.
yeah, he's awesome. So I'm watching a ton of his podcasts recently. So he ends his podcast generally with a challenge at the end. so that it's the people who are listening to the podcast, they are leaving with something actionable. So what would be one challenge that you would like to throw in? It could be anything related to, maybe cold emails, or it could be anything in general.
Yeah. So the one thing I would challenge anyone that's listening to do is focus on sending at least 100 cold outreaches a day, whether it be cold calls, cold emails, LinkedIn outreach, whatever channel it is. If you do 100 a day and your goal is to sign a client, you'll be able to do it in under 30 days.
That's awesome. So I took a challenge yesterday that I'm gonna send one cold email a day. So I feel like I have to change that, right?
Yeah,
It would
we
be
got to
difficult
increase
to
those
do
numbers.
100. It would be difficult to do 100 a day, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, got it, got it. I'm gonna change this right after this podcast. Thank you for jumping on the show. What would be the best way to reach out to you for those who might want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you type in Nick Abraham 12 on Twitter, you'll see my tweets daily. I'm also starting to get a little active on YouTube, so you can see some more in-depth videos of how we run some of our cold email processes that could potentially help you. And I'm also active on LinkedIn if you type in Nick Abraham, and you'll find us.
Awesome. I'm gonna link down those below in the description. Thanks for getting the show. It was awesome to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.